Let me start by introducing myself. I'm Lalanath de Silva, a Sri Lankan composer and conductor. And as I said earlier, our focus today is the musical career of a wonderful and beloved performer and music educator, Sujeeva Hapugalle. Hi, Sujeeva. Welcome to our program, and so good to have you online to join with us today.
Thank you, Lalanath, and welcome to the audience. Thank you for being here.
Lovely. It's so great to see you. I mean, you've got such a colorful dress. I look forward to all of what you are going to tell us about this wonderful music we've chosen for today. But before that, let me introduce you to our audience a little bit by telling you a little bit of Sujeeva's career. I mean, her CV, her resume is very long, so I've culled it down to a shorter synopsis of it. But let me start by saying I've known Sujeeva for a long time, from the time she was in high school, as a matter of fact. I have watched her perform with awe at numerous concerts, both in Sri Lanka and online. And we were both part of several orchestras in Colombo, and Sujeeva collaborated with many musicians and singers in concerts in Colombo as well as around the world. And since Sujeeva left for the United Kingdom and the USA, we have kept in touch and with each other, of course, and followed each other's musical activities. But we want to start with her playing us Chopin's Fantasy Impromptu in C-sharp minor, Opus 66. Sujeeva would like the music to speak for itself. Wow, wow, wow. What a lovely performance, Jiva. Tell us a bit more about that piece and Chopin's improvisatory fantasia style of writing. please.
Thank you, Lalanath. Yes, that's, I think, a well-loved piece that a lot of people know. And I don't mean to take the spontaneity of Chopin's musical, spontaneity of his improvisational style of writing, but I think it's going to be fun to kind of have a little insight into three of the sections that you just heard, because it's just so innovative and fun.
Oh, I
And
think so too. I think so too. Go
yes,
ahead.
yes. And also, it's in the beginning of the program, and it's always nice to tune in and listen more finely. And to do this now, the key center of the work really helps us to kind of have some relative insight to it. And as Lalanath mentioned, it's in C sharp minor. And actually, the Chopin chose a very simple line of harmonic progressions on which to base his melodic improvisations on. And just to get your ear tuned, I'd like to take you through a paragraph of 4 sentences and just listen to the harmonic changes, which is very simple. Second, third. At the end, it opened up a cadence which asked a question. Now we have to add a melody to that. And you just heard what Chopin's improvised melody was. But before we hear that version again, I'd like to kind of get to the grain of the melody and just let you know that the skeleton of the melody is actually very simple and matches so much to the left hand. You'll be surprised. May I just play a little sneak preview of that? Just the skeleton of it. That's the skeleton of the harmonic and melodic contours. But now Chopin begins to improvise and adds little embellishments to that. So instead of doing a single note and then a little chord that way, he would add embellishments this way. Instead of that, he adds another note. Together we get this. And instead of this, right, now I put it together with the left hand and you have his improvised melody of the first two phrases. And in a four phrase paragraph, usually the third phrase has some lovely events, and definitely he flies to a high register, and in a normal contour we would get to, he would go like that, but he makes it more special by going to a high note and brings us to a new key with a fascinating line. Now I'm going to play you the four phrases there. That's his improvised melody there, and just 2 little other things that he adds color with. And that to get a little bit more harmonic color, he adds a very innovative rhythmic balance between the hands. So he has a group of 3 in the left hand, but it doesn't match a group of 3 in the right hand. It's 4 against 3, which makes some notes a little not together. So together you hear a lot of harmonic color. It's just fascinating. The second paragraph, with one note, he creates a modulation and takes us somewhere else. And now he introduces a singing voice, first in the alto of my hand, and invites a response from the soprano. So you get a little bit of insight into that. And one more idea, because I know that you have actually heard the slow section. And to take you into that, he wants to create a different environment. And he does this by shifting keys, right, Lalanath? The fascinating thing about changing the same note, which was C sharp, we call it a diatonic tone, we change the name to D flat and create a different world. Now instead of calling this C sharp minor, we call it a D flat major, and it changes the word. And it creates broader lines, and the poetry unfolds. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for unpacking that piece for us. It's not always we get someone like you telling, the audience how the whole piece is constructed. And that's what we all should be listening for. That's just wonderful. So the next piece that you have chosen for us is also by an Impressionist composer, Maurice Ravel. And it's Un barque sur l'océan, or A Boat on the Ocean, from his work called Miroir, or Mirrors. Please share with us some insights, if you don't mind, before you play the piece for us, so that we can be ready to listen to the whole piece, having had that insight.
Great, thank you, Lalanath. Actually, we are using some of the videos that my husband made, Prasanna, and during the pandemic, during the pandemic, we actually had a little theme going for part of the repertoire to connect with nature, and in Baksulosian is just that. And it's literally what it means, a boat in the ocean. Ravel was very fortunate to be invited by a millionaire, Alfred Edwards, to go on a cruise. And when he did, it's wonderful to read some of Ravel's letters where he said beautiful new sounds, the sound and the visuals that opened up just brought some amazing sensitivity to his mind. And he composed this set of 5 pieces, Miroir, of which in Baksulosian is a third. And the music should speak for itself, but I want to take you back in time because this is written in 1905 at a time when the piano was actually very, very well developed. And Ravel himself was a great orchestrator. And after the war that way, there was a very revolutionary ideas from composers. And his orchestration as well brought innovative colors. And it didn't stop him from trying to create that off the piano. And so I'd like to take you, before the video is played, or the extract of the video is played, maybe about 3 seascapes that he crafts on the piano. And of course, so we need to have the ocean, we have to have the boat. And in the first motive, we use a beautiful color, right? And the left hand creates the wave. We have a lilt of 2 for the wave. It's going that way. The boat comes the opposite way, contrary motion, and then it meets in the middle. As I was trying to play to Lalanath before we started, one of my favorite spots of that motive is when the boat and the ocean meet. It creates such a subtle color, and I'd love you to kind of engage in that. When you're watching the ocean, these are the sounds that it has, right? So I'll play that movement. As this scene progresses, he brings another melody in the middle, which I think is the soul of what he felt of this scene. That's one scene. Now we go to a different register in the piano and the ocean, and we have a second scene, right, Lalanath, all the way down to the bottom, and he changes the momentum. There's a current. We had 2 beats in the first wave, but now it's a scene with 3 beats, and he creates an event. A little flat. Might not get Chopin's melodies. Yeah, you might not get Chopin's melodies, but listen out for these scenes. One more scene. And for that, I might just make you a little dizzy with seeing one of his scores, because this is one of the big build-ups where the ocean really, kind of gets a little bit of a depth from the bottom of the piano. You can almost imagine where that's from the ocean. And now you have the boat at the top and the ocean waves here, really trying to meet in the middle. And I'll play the outline first. Now I'm going to add a little bit of the wave. And I'm going to add the current at the bottom now. When I watch the ocean, I'd love to be a part of this wave. Look at the harmonies of this one that you just heard and the cadence it made. Yeah, so there's a lot to listen out for in this little extract. It's not the whole piece. I hope it makes you want to go and listen to the whole piece. But this is just, yeah, okay.
Indeed, yeah, no, I'm eager to hear the piece now. It's
Okay.
wonderful, the three different the seascapes that you illustrated. Thank you for doing that, Sujeeva. Maybe we should hear the piece now, Maurice Ravel's Un barque sur l'océan, from his collection of pieces called Miroir, or Mirrors.
Yes, it's just a few extracts. We missed a bit in the middle, but at the end, the boat recedes, the whole scene gets into twilight. So.
Bravo, Sujeeva. Bravo, bravo. I'm sure our audience is as clapping as well as I am. Thank you. Thank you for that. It is such a beautiful piece of music. I could picture that boat on the ocean, and in the middle, just towards the end, there was that little turbulent patch, a little bit of turbulent waters as the boat kind of gets through that and then reaches calmer waters. It's just very beautiful, very good, solid impressionistic music. Would I be right in observing that you have a certain fondness for the Romantics and the Impressionist composers?
Well, I think the selection of music that we chose today was also based a lot on what we had recorded during the pandemic, and definitely those were the moods to share with. And
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's the impressionistic music really draws out a lot of colors and vision, and it's just so creative to deal with. And the romantic music that we are having with Chopin in the hands of Chopin and many others also have a lot of architecture, and that whole crafting, the fine art of crafting your story to even classical forms is just very engaging, and it's music is an art of communication. So those two styles are wonderful. But Lalanath, we do the other works a lot.
Of course.
Yes, I mean, when I do teach, it's the whole legacy of even if you think of Beethoven, they have to do the journeys, the Haydn, the Beethoven, all of that, and that was going on a lot. In fact, even during the pandemic, with the 250th years of Beethoven's year, we did a lot of Beethoven and Haydn and all of that. So yes, of course, but it's today's mix is a little something else.
Yes. Okay, good, good. So we have lots of comments coming in online, and yes, to our audience, thank you for your comments. Please keep sending them, and raise your questions. And as I said at the beginning, we'll do our best to answer them. First, for the comments. So we have Sudarshan Senaratna first saying, fascinating analysis. So that's good. I'm hearing that from a lot of people. Hasanti Dissanayaka, who was our ambassador in Vietnam at one point, she says, wow, love the way she explains all of this.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
And then we have a regular on these programs, Huyen Tran Huy, who's from Vietnam. And he says, hello, Mr. Lalanath de Silva and Sujeeva Hapugalle. I'm happy to follow this session. And the song that Ms. Sujeeva has just played is one of Chopin's songs that I really like. So there you go. We also have Ruini saying magical. I know she's your sister. She's a great pianist as well. And Dilan, who's also a pianist and a conductor, saying, enjoying your performance, thank you so much. So, and Sudarshan once again saying, wow, mesmerizing. This is for Boat on the Ocean, amazing interpretation. And now we do have a question from Rajiv Aloysius. So let me read that to you. How important is highlighting these subtle inner voices in the standard repertoire, such as Schumann and Chopin and Beethoven? Some regard these as eccentricities, but I seek out recordings by pianists like Glenn Gould and Sviatoslav Richter to hear them. So tell us what you think about these inner voices?
Oh, I think it just makes the whole difference. I mean, I live for that, but it's all relative. It's all the whole art of balance. And I was going to read a quote from one of Chopin's pupils. He's one of his main pupils, and it's right in front of me. And Rajiv, that will answer you as well. I mean, this is Carl Mikuli. He says, any work selected for study should be carefully analyzed for its formal structure, as well as for the feelings and psychological process which it evokes. And this is all in balance. It's not meant to sound pedantic and overdone, but if you take a composer like Chopin, his influence came a lot from Bach, polyphonic, many voices at the same time, but he used that to say a compelling story. So it's like in chamber music, you do need to craft it, and depending on the instrument you're playing, there's so many ways of subtleties that you can balance in voicing with articulations, but different touches to make it subtle and, kind of tease the phrasing in, and just good etiquette in which to kind of craft your conversation. Yes.
Now we have more questions, Sujeeva, on emotion, how to put in emotion and all that. We'll come to that in a minute, but I want to say perhaps it's time for a fun break. And we know that women composers have come to the fore in the 20th and 21st centuries. And no doubt there were women. In fact, my last program, I featured Tanya Aikanaik, a woman composer and pianist. No doubt there were women composers before, the 20th and 21st century, even from the time of the Renaissance. But we have lost most of their music. And we have also lost the knowledge of their styles, mostly because of prejudice and, kind of patriarchal attitudes. Now, Sujiva, you have chosen this next piece, I should say, combination of two pieces, really, by two Brazilian women composers, Gonzaga and Nazareth. What's so fun about these two pieces?
Well, it's just very fun. But I mean, thank you for sharing your thoughts, Lalanath. Just there that you opened up so many topics for conversation, but let's keep it to your last thing there. It's just fun. In my career, in my latter years, I've had to present programs in different settings at different times to very mixed audiences. And in my travels, I make it a point to discover new music. And this was two scores I found when we were on a work trip to Brazil, and we had a day free, and we just heard and saw so much Brazilian music, live music and dance, and it was just gripping.
Oh, yeah. Were you was that in Rio? Were you in Rio?
Rio de Janeiro, yeah, yeah, capital city.
I've been to Rio a couple of times, of course, for the Earth summits, the environmental
Oh, right. I
meeting.
hope you got some
And
time off.
I did. No, it's such a vibrant city with such
Yeah.
music and yeah,
Yes.
indeed. So
Yes.
please continue.
Yeah, well, if you don't mind, I think we are with a friendly audience, but it's not what we do all the time. But we just happened to step in for dinner, and it happened to be a kind of a Saturday, or was it Sunday, going into Monday, and this place had a lot of Brazilian groups playing fantastic music, and then people were dancing. But it was a venue that carried through their programs through many groups till morning, till the people had porridge and breakfast and went to work. So we had a good dose of music, and you can bet that I was waiting to get my hands on some local music. And we stepped into a music store and found both of these scores. Gonzaga was a female composer, and Nazareth he's a gentleman, but they actually lived around the same time. And you'll hear Gonzaga. The music is not so in the sense it's very simply written, but there's so much life in it. And so it's only a snatch of a couple of themes of it.
Yeah. So one of these is a tango. Am I right? Is the first?
Actually, they're both variations of tangos, but I'll let you figure out. You can move. In fact, in the same trip, we went to Brazil and then to Argentina, and both the countries boasted of how their dances are different.
Of course.
Let's get to Brazil now.
As a composer, what really interests me in this music is that, the tango is as you say, it's dance from morning till night through the night, it's parties. It's very much the lifeblood of people, just as much as, say, for example, the baila is for Sri Lankans, right? The baila. You go to a wedding and people have a little drink and dance. So, but these composers are taking the elements of their dance form and transforming it to concert pieces, which is for me as a composer a very interesting phenomenon. I've tried to do that with the baila as well in composing. But let's hear this piece. I'm eager to hear the piece.
Snatch of a couple of themes.
Okay, and they both merge into each other. Am I right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good, great. Let's listen to that. yeah, fantastic, fantastic. I mean, I wish I could hear more, more of that.
Well, you can hear it from the website, actually.
Indeed, indeed. So we will. I think on the chat we're going to, put the link to your website, and we'll do that for sure. But before we conclude this first half, I do have a couple of questions. So we have a comment from Taranga Gunaratna who says, "Great to have the narrations to the compositions." It's been so long since I have seen such, and thank you very much for this session. So that's a thank you from her. But we have our Vietnamese regular colleague who joins us, Huyen Tran Hoi, who says, today happens to be the 195th anniversary of Beethoven's death. And I also hope that Sujeeva would play a piece by Beethoven. I'm not sure if one of your students are going to play a Beethoven piece. I'm not sure, but let's see. But he has a question for you. I also want to ask, when playing the piano, how will Mr. Jiva put the emotions into the music to best express the performance? How do you? Yes, talk us through a little bit of the emotional aspect of music and how you try to bring that out, Sujiva.
Yeah. Lalanath, that's actually coming up in what we're going to be, presenting with the Chopin. But, emotion, it also depends on which kind of music. But if it's music that is familiar to you, you do have different strands of what music is about. The melody, the rhythm. The rhythm should be your heartbeat. And that will take you to express that. You have to be into that, the rhythm of the music. And then the melody is a narrative of the story of the music, and the harmony is the chords and the emotion, the blending of harmonies and the fluidity of how it changes from one to another makes your emotions go with that emotion of the piece. And if you're playing, that is so key to make happen.
And
Yes.
yeah, and also how important is it to understand the stage of the life of the composer, the events that were surrounding
Oh,
the writing of the piece to
yeah.
connect that with your emotions.
Oh, very much so. I mean, even a simple cadence, the etiquette of it, or even, I mean, there's so much within that, the way you might phrase something, way you might treat a dissonance. Some composers thought it was an etiquette to actually resolve the dissonance. Some didn't, So there are so many aspects of your storytelling in the music that also connects to the even the melody. Chopin was, some people might be very fluid and think French, and that is a very liquid melody, and then Beethoven is something different. It's still the Germanic, a lot of articulation there, and the richness of the sound. There's so many aspects, and it sort of begs me to do a detailed study on that. But for the moment, I'll leave you with that till we talk about Chopin, because, yes.
Excellent. So maybe we have more questions coming in, but I want to leave them for a little bit later. So I'm asking the audience to be a little bit patient. But to end this first part, Sujiva has chosen to play us two excerpts from Chopin's Sonata Number 3 in B minor, Opus 58. We started with a Chopin impromptu, and in part 2, we have an extract from Chopin's piano concerto as well. So a lot of Chopin today. Maybe, Sujiva, you could give us some insights into the two contrasting excerpts that you have chosen for us today from this sonata by Chopin, and some insights into this wonderful composer who wrote so much of piano music.
Yes, Lalanath, actually, yes, Chopin, maybe 98% of his opus was for piano. And, he kept to himself, all his thoughts were in his writings for his works. But moving on from his salon pieces, like the Fantasy Impromptu, in his 30 odd years, he wrote so many broader dimension works. It's extraordinary narratives in that. And those broader works are an amazing study too in detail. And these are the four ballads. He wrote Scherzi, he wrote the concertos and the sonatas and all of that. So just I'd love to just take you through kind of a narrative scape of how he built a dimension within one of these broader works. And as much as I'm going to finish with two little extracts of the Chopin sonata to show two themes that have a lot of dimension, I'd like to take you through the little points about how you built a ballad, because I'm sure a lot of your audience might be engaged in writing and all of that, and I'd like to draw some interest to some of that. So I choose his first ballad for that, and I'm sorry that I apologize that it's sort of skimping through something, but this ballad in musical terms has two main themes or two characters, and one they obviously have to be contrasting. The first one is very questioning and the other one is more settled. So today I'd like to focus a lot on the second theme when it evolves through this 20-odd page ballad about 3 or 4 times. But it's amazing how it evolves in its majesty and its turbulence and its resolution. But to do that, we need to understand in his ballad, he actually, like in a book, he would write an introduction and he gives you a little clue about the extent, the drama, the breadth of its story. And for that, I just would like, since you have registered for key centers, the G minor ballad, the sound of G minor, the home key is that. And usually you would start in that key. But to show you some of the drama, he escapes to something completely unrelated and goes to a broad questioning, a big surge. Weakens and then you can say he weakens and tries to find a cadence, and we learn another cadence, one that is it's a gentle cadence, plagal cadence. In true terms, a plagal cadence would sound like this. It finishes on the home key, but he's very dramatic. He opens up the narrative. The opera begins now. Without going to the home key, he poses another question. So much to solve. That's why we get 20 pages after that, right? Out of nothing. And then he has a questioning theme. Somewhere else. So you got the nature of the first theme, very questioning, and it actually progresses to be searching, to be a little restless like this. And the most turbulent one before the second theme comes is this. Turbulent, but in the end finds that ethereal second character, and you couldn't find it more ethereal and settled in the rhythm of the piece. Now very settled, a beautiful cadence, the melody arises. Please listen. Later, the A theme comes and interacts and they want to get something else going, and just because we have a little time today, I go to the next appassionata version of the second theme, and it's majestic, the left hand goes. I hope you can sing along the melody by now. to the scene 3. And that temperament, as I said, the pulse has changed now. In that turbulence, the second theme comes to this entrance. And so on. And we have to fast forward. And we come to the last part now, the coda, a fiery end. And he has the pulse of the coda.
So coda, just for the benefit of our audience, is a kind of ending, if you like, right?
Yes, yes. And the ending has that little ninth. That questioning interval is all resolved in here. You hear that in that rhythm. Now you just listen to that. It's all resolved, and out of that you have the utterance of the second theme for the last time. I'll play it with its lone voice first. And then it should resolve like that, but it's setting like this. And then you have a couple of more phrases like that. And so that is Chopin's story building, and it's very easy to get that height of emotion evolving if you study the structure and all the voicing of the piece, because inside many little motives you find more substance to pull out. To this day, I know I'll find more things. And that's the humbling thing about some of these scores. So I hope you enjoyed that, Lana.
Indeed. No, I'm sure our audience would have enjoyed that too. I'm sure from the appreciation we're getting online on the chat, no doubt that these explanations really help. So I think it's time to listen to that sonata. And just to say that there are 2 excerpts from the sonata. And it is by Chopin. So it's Sonata in B minor, Opus 58. And we're going to listen to that, and then we'll come back. And this brings us to the end of part 1. And we're going to transition to the next part, in which we're going to feature some of the educational work that Sujeeva's been doing. And then we have more questions which we are going to answer as well. So let's just pause here and listen to this wonderful except from his sonata. Go ahead.
A poetic melody and the rising fire to get into the major at the end, the 4th movement.
Great. Fantastic. Lovely, lovely. Thank you, Sujeeva. I mean, I obviously would love to hear the whole. And the audience, you can. Are these online as well,
They're
Sujeeva?
lines.
They're
Actually, on
online.
my CD, which was recorded about 19 years ago at St. John
Okay.
Smith Square, London, but it is there. It'll be on the site.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. So I encourage the audience to go listen to this. Just before we start this second section or second part, guess who's online? Rohan de Silva, and he says, "Wonderful, Sushi. Hi there, Rohan. Good to see you. And know that you're online listening to us. So thank you for your support. And I know you've done so many concerts with Rohan. Rohan is another one
Right
of the
here. Yeah.
yes, indeed, indeed. Uh, and we did a program. The very second program I did was with Rohan and Taranga Gunatilaka.
Yes.
We did a program together. So that we do have a question here from Lakshan Pereira, who's a Sri Lankan composer, by the way. And he says, "Nice to see you. Have you ever played piano compositions of Sri Lankan composers?"
I I would love to, Lalanath. You need to kind of, we should, in your program, if you can even make an index of, the repertoire that's been written for piano, it's a big move forward. And because I've been traveling a lot, I just love to figure out the identity on the piano. Because, even when I play things by Albanese and all the Spanish composers, Spain was interesting. It had Turkish, Arabian, or even actually the pagodes, which is coming next, is from a set of prints that actually goes to Spain, and you hear the Arabic, the Turkish, all these other.
To Indonesia.
Yeah, no, I
Right?
meant the second part,
Oh, the
second
second
one
part.
of,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, indeed.
So we would love you to perhaps compile something, all right.
Yeah, I agree that part of the problem is that the repertoire is not, documented well, not cataloged. It's all over the place, and so having a
And we have to
collection of
get,
it,
we've got to
one
get
gets
Tanya to
helpful.
write.
Yeah, Tanya certainly does. But Tanya's is interesting because she doesn't actually score her music. This is interesting.
I
This is
know.
entirely in her head. So we also have another question, and this actually is a good lead in to the next, and you can answer it as you go along. It's from Taranga Guruntalika, and she says, "Lovely to see you again, Sujeeva. As a musician and artist, can you let young musicians know how important the role of having a supportive life partner?
Life
If one were to be in a
partner.
relationship, I know that your husband admires and supports you. Would love to know more from your own words. So keep that question in mind. You can respond to that maybe as we go along.
Yes, this is of course, and I did mention him already. In fact, he's the one who plucked me out and made me record all these things. And, the sensitivity that one has, Prasanna has for music is just amazing. I mean, we get on so well with it's kind of the recording things we do. We have made the acoustic of the room to not just to serve us, but also many concerts that we hold as, as benefits, and even my students, they get the benefit of it. And, that is thanks to Prasanna. And it's that wonderful match, the collaborative thing of the arts, creativity, and the technical mind. And then the way he loves to collaborate with the arts. So I can't say more.
So obviously, having a partner who is supportive is very important. And
Well, and my dad, I remember, I mean, my mom was a musician, my sister's a musician, my brother was also really with popular music. There's a lot of music in the household. Actually, my dad used to just support anything, and he probably, if I had any spontaneity, he's the one who used to sing at
no,
the
no,
back.
I remember him being at all the concerts and driving you guys around and all of that stuff. My goodness, yes. No, that's very true. And indeed, you mentioned your sister Ruvini. Ruvini is a very well known and a solid
Wonderful teacher.
piano teacher in Sri Lanka as well. And she actually says it's been too long since we heard you play, having goosebumps as I hear you play. My favorite pianist of all time.
Well, I get goosebumps listening to her, I have to say. It's been too long as well.
Then Hari Namithanathan is listening in and he says, hi,
Oh,
Suji. So there you go.
we are too far away.
Lots of your fans and supporters here online. So let's
Yeah.
start the second part now, if you don't mind, Sujiva. But I want to say a little bit about the second part and about Sujiva before we get started. It's time for, in the second part, we focus on Sujiva's critical role as a wonderful music educator. And if you look at the resume of Western Indian music or Indian musicians, what they really highlight most is who your teachers were, rather than the academic qualifications you have. Now, teachers play an important role in musical education, but as we have said before, music and musicians and other artists play a huge role in human culture and social cohesion. Now, a few words about Sujiva as a musical educator. Now, since moving to the USA, Sujiva has served on the board of the San Francisco Chamber Orchestra, and amongst other projects, she initiated the popular Rush Hour concert series in San Francisco's financial district. She has also been instrumental in promoting affiliation to present chamber music for younger audiences in the Francisco Bay Area, with over 1,500 enthusiastic students in attendance for these concerts. She was recently presented a special certificate of recognition by the San Francisco Symphony League for her outreach contribution since 2001. Sujiva has been a keen supporter and performing artist for charities in the UK and in the US, and of course in Sri Lanka as well, amongst a host of community projects, supporting purchase of pianos for concert performances and education. She treasures experiences of her performance works for Yehudi Menuhin's Live Music Now series in London and others serving music rehabilitation programs. She serves as an adjudicator in national and international competitions, in the US, and is an active music pedagogue receiving regular invitations to present master classes and lectures, recitals in the United States and on tours. Now, Sujiva runs a successful piano studio where her students are regularly rewarded with placements on coveted performing rosters and festivals and top awards of state, national, and international piano competitions. They are nurtured to be valued musical contributors to their communities. Also, via her studio's musical bridges outreach program, and the tag of which is, and I'm quoting, the passion and excellence of youth music serving their community in education, concert platforms, and community building. And her studio has been featured on San Francisco Bay Area's local TV channels as well. Her critically acclaimed discography includes a recording of St. John Smith's at St. John Smith Square, London, part of which you already heard actually, of selected compositions by Chopin, and a second recording that includes works by Beethoven, Chopin, Debussy, Liszt, Albinitz, and Saens and Kotovsky. Now, Sujeeva collaborates, as she said already, with her husband Prasanna on many musical projects, including their home Concerts by the Bay series and their virtual performances, performance shares that she shares with wide audiences. A big thank you to Prasanna, who has been working behind the scenes to make this session a success, and he's actually sitting right in front of her, though you can't see him. So thank you to you, Prasanna, out there. So Sujiva, tell us about your involvement with musical education and youth, and about your becoming a judge in these competitions, and their involvement in these competitions. I think this is a very important aspect of your life and your contribution. Please.
Yes, I mean it's such a big topic and such a vital one, because in any sphere, the younger generation and what you do right for them and being futuristic and not being too pedantic is so vital at this point. And I think we need a big collaboration to rethink about things. But in my own recent past, I used to live in London, and it's after I got out of college, I was playing a lot. But in my work as a teacher, I was actually doing a lot of things meetings with teachers, with the European Piano Teachers Association presenting and all of that. But when I came over here, the first few years, I mean, in the Bay Area, the first few years we were traveling a lot on my work as well. And I used to do master classes, lecture recitals, all of that. But it's only recently, perhaps in the last 13 to 14 years, that I have part of my portfolio, very small part of a portfolio of regular students. And for that, I really valued my time for that. In fact, they're all from the neighborhood. They just came over, and it was one of the most enriching periods of my time. And with that, we, the Bay Area is one of a kind. It's very competitive. It's very highly charged. Google happens here, everything happens here, and everything has to happen very fast. So it was a studio that grew from the ages of 5 or something, and one at 4 as well. And I just made a lot of opportunities for them. They grew fast with repertoire. And I made each one, I felt I was looking at them to make a unique voice out of them. And each one has their various balances of things that they come with, and it's not meant, in the early years, it's not meant to balance it off, to spark them off. It's many different strengths to spark it off and work on their weaknesses and get the right repertoire, make a lot of presentations for concerts. I made them pretty good leaders in various community projects, and they made music part of their lives. So it was a very vibrant association. We have a lot of group classes, and we probe music. We don't get perturbed about somebody else playing the same piece. We look to see how can we do it differently, and what did we hear from somebody else. So there was a lot of activity we did, and definitely we have a lot of competitions in this country and per se in the Bay Area, and I think it's very healthy if you look at it the right way. Everybody needs assessments. Everybody needs to go out there and just see where they place. And when you can do it when you're young, it's a huge impact when you're an adult.
Yeah, can I just interrupt you there for a minute, Sujeeva? So there's a bit of a feeling in Sri Lanka, and I've heard this sometimes from the Ministry of Education, sometimes from other musicians, that they don't want to encourage competitions because this breeds, kind of a competitive spirit. It might breed even some animosity with each other and that kind of feeling, and therefore they try not to do competition, but instead prefer to do festivals. So, you just said that if you have the right attitude, well, how do you see these competitions? And I know you said that they have a very important role to play. So I'm just trying to get your views on that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, when I was growing up, I didn't have too many competitions, and I did when I got to London. But per se, for my students, I encourage it because they wanted to do it, and it's in a highly competitive environment. They have to have their portfolios with some recognition. But for me, if they wanted to do that, for me, it meant that they learned more depth of their craft and more individuality to bring out their essence of that. So I voted for it, and learn to make them courageous, learn to make them come out of their comfort zones, because you do have to, it's one of a kind performance to go out there and get it all right and more and inspire in one go. And that, we cultivated really, yes, most of the time actually. I had several students doing the same competition, and we had the same group class, but at that time we were bigger than the competition. We were about the music and what you could do. And so they did very well. Even during the pandemic, it was every month we had competitions. And
No. Life is full of competitions. When you apply for a job, you're competing. If there are sex scarcities and you're standing in a line to get something which is being rationed, which is what is now happening in our country. Well, then there's a degree of competition there. You're really competing for resources. You're trying to put your child into school. You're competing with others, so that it's
right.
good. And I don't see why competitions should not be done in Sri Lanka as well. Of course, festivals are important as well. So, and I think the ideal is you should have both of these things happening, right? As you have around in the Bay Area, but also all over the world and in the United States. So,
Two things I'd love to say because I feel that it's so important right now. I think these kids, we all of us, that we have to learn to be world citizens. And through music, we learn the art of music and humanity together. We learn to, through our repertoire that we present for all these things, learn the fine differences and the appreciation from France to Italy to Spain, from Spain to Portugal. What is the difference? What do we bring out? And all that study when you're young and lending your mind ears and sensitivity is so vital for the future and for their being. They are going into the world which is very chaotic at the moment and it could be misleading, but a little bit of engagement almost every day when they do this. How is rhythm different from this culture to another, or what is the dissonance? How do we have to have cadence and whatever it is? So I think that is also amazing a point about competitions. Yes, you're judging all of that, and yes, I mean we can talk so much about
no, indeed, indeed.
pros and cons.
but festivals are good too. Festivals are good too. You have to just manage it.
Indeed, indeed. So I think it's time to go to our next collection of pieces, as a matter of fact, featuring your young students. And this first video clip we have is really of these young artists performing a number of different concerti in which you are actually also playing the piano, but you're playing the piano, the orchestral part
Second,
of the piano, yes,
yeah.
the second piano. And I know you have two pianos in your home, but tell us how you put this collage of young musicians for our next clip together.
Well, I think was as a first clip, I thought it'd be lovely to see young children, musicians collaborating because it makes them great listeners, and I like to get that aspect from the beginning. How you craft a score like a bit of chamber music, and I do have my professor David Parkhouse to thank for that as well. He was a wonderful chamber musician, but concertos they started off pretty young. I mean, the first girl who's playing the Chopin first concerto, she had already done a Mozart concerto. Actually, she's playing that later in a link, and also some Haydn. And so the younger students in this little link I have brought the choice of concertos to bring them out of character. So it might not be completely fine-tuned in style and all of that, but you see their personality and listening and collaborating. And so it's a little, could be roughish, but there's a lot to admire. And I hope you like this. It's just, and some of them have played with orchestras. The girl who played the the Beethoven has played one of the Mozart concerti with an orchestra. The Rachmaninov was also played in the Bay Area in Italy. So like that, they had live experiences, but this was their first recording, which got better.
No, 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 no. I've heard the clip, and I think they're just wonderful. I mean, it also shows what a gift you're imparting to them, and to be able to guide them. So let's have a listen to that, to this next clip of these young artists performing different excerpts from different concerti. Fantastic! What a wonderful, talented group of students you have there, Sujeeva. I mean, and if any of them take to music, full time to make their profession, I think they can surely go a very long way. Um, um, I'm sure that teaching them has been an exhilarating experience for you, and so bravo to all of them. And I think it's perhaps time to hear you play again. Your next piece is a Debussy piece, The Giant of the Impressionist Musical World. And you have chosen his piece Pagodes from his work Estampe, meaning pagodas from prints or paintings. Pagodas or dagabas, as we call them in Sri Lanka, are Buddhist temples. And Debussy transports us here to Indonesia to begin with gamelan-like sounds, musical sounds. The gamelan orchestras of Indonesia, full of bells and drums and xylophones and things like that, and they dance to it as well. Give us your perspective on this next piece, Sujeeva. And we do have a couple of comments which I talk about afterwards.
Okay, and Lalanath, I just want to say we have another clip of more students in their later years, so that's something to look forward to. But for the moment, here's Debussy. Again, it was done during the pandemic, and we wanted to reach out to different cultures and also just kind of get more sensitive how we listen to our environment and make that impact us. And this is just a beautiful piece. And as you said, it's from a set of three: Estampe's Prince and the Pagoda. It's Beethoven's, Debussy's impressions transcend into sound, the vision, the life, the tempo of an Oriental city. And to do this, it's a very interesting structure of the piece. He kind of makes little motifs, presents them like little scenes in a musical collage. And so to do this, I'd love to take you through about 4 different little scenes that I feel depicts a lot of what a city of pagodas would be. But interesting enough, yes, he was in Paris and he was influenced to the Orient by listening to, there was an exhibition of Oriental cultures and all of that, and he heard the Japanese gamelan orchestras and all of that, and it impacted what he sort of felt in the mysticism and the exoticism of the Orient cities. So the gamelan orchestras usually has their sound in about 3 layers. So he used that influence throughout the piece. You see these impressions being transcribed into 3 layers of sound. So as listeners today, it'll be nice for you to know how it was crafted and also to listen to that. And now it's very interesting because to take us to the Oriental thing, we do have, I might just put this on. Sorry, oopsie, wrong one. I think I'm right here, right? You just see, musicians will see like B major or something, but actually it's a tonal center. And for the first group of scenes, he uses the pentatonic scale, which is black notes of the piano. That kind of scale he uses for the first one, and for the second one he uses the whole tone scale, which is so those are the tonal centers. Now we go into the first scene and the pagodas. You know the shape of the pagodas. A little introduction gives you a little feel in a very laid back kind of Oriental pulse. And for me, I just transcribed it to feel that it's a day. It just breaks in the distance. You hear the pulse in the rising pagodas, kind of. Into this, he weaves a melody. We heard 3 layers, but we hear now 3 distinct layers. The top layer comes with a rising melody in the pentatonic scale, which is depicting a pagoda. So you hear this as a bottom layer, this is the middle, and the melody at the top, 3 layers. One of them. Later on, it's like the day breaks, we hear a little bit of distant bells into that. we get the second motive, the gongs, the deep gongs, the bells far and near, 3 layers of it. So we have the deep gong here. And it's supposed, you can see right at the last line, it's supposed to be a pedal point. It's supposed to just last there. And then we have a very soulful middle layer of bells. Listen to that melody, it's always recurrent. And on the top, we hear another one. Now we have to manipulate all 3, but I know you have a good ear. You can hear that and enjoy, I hope. We have a collage, so we just slip into the next scene. For me, it's kind of like a reverent prayer. It's like an oscillation of 2 notes. Very close intervals, and you'll see the music there. And you'll hear it in the recording. Now the day breaks a little bit. You can see number 4, many bells. You have this, you have that melody, right? And the oscillation. One more in this one. I love this. It's almost, for me, it's like the interplay of water or reflections. And I might just put this because you can hear the 2 hands trying to mirror each other. I'm sure you heard the mirroring, and we have more bells. And so on, and one teasing second tune in the whole tone scale. It's so different, and that is that in the music. You can hear it in the whole link, but another little variation of it. And towards the end of the piece, you hear the whole city celebrating with bells and gongs and all of that. And that was like the rain came in, and you hear all these themes of the pagodas coming in, and it just recedes to twilight. That's a little sneak preview. We have only some excerpts through the piece, and to Prasanna's beautiful production of it. Lalanath, is that a time?
No, that's fantastic. I think that's a great introduction to the piece. Now, just before we listen to that wonderful piece of music by Claude Debussy, I want to read out a few, some really very supportive comments. Of course, Lalanath de Silva says that you have nurtured these talents, these young people from very young age, and that Sujeeva's 100% dedication and hard work and her kind, gentle nature has made these students who they are. This is so rare these days. That's what he says.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's a very
special. That's
very sweet of him, yes. And then Sudarshan Senaratna, who, by the way, many years ago used to play the bassoon in the symphony and so on, and he's also a pianist in his own right. Such a well-diversified program, highly educative, really enjoying. Thank you, Sujeeva and Lalanath. And then Rohan, of course, also says she has some of the best talent in the Bay Area now. We do have a question here saying, since COVID is abating, when is Sujeeva going to play next in Sri Lanka? So that's a question you have to answer.
Yes, I would love to. I mean, we need
music when times are not so good, and I've known that, and I would, yes. Yes, I mean, I would just sneak in this story. It's only 30 seconds, because when I was in
Yes, yes.
London, I knew somebody who was very close to my heart for many years, Carola Grindia, who was a household name and the founder of many big organizations. But she herself, during the Second World War, from Romania with her husband, fled to London, and she was staying with the great pianist Myra Hess. And these are really legendary names. And during the war, Myra Hess wanted to stop her concert playing and be an ambulance driver. She was German. And Carola actually convinced her not to do that, but to start some concerts in the basement of the National Art Gallery in London. And she did just that. They started these concerts for for people, for the forces, all of that. And that really transcended to be the noontime concerts at St. Martin's in the Field.
Oh,
And
wow.
I mean, that is where it originated during the war. And I come to San Francisco and I see that it is also here, the same series, the noontime concerts, and also in New York and Chicago. So this is the time we need to play more. We need to share. We need to make people.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Indeed.
yeah.
Oh, absolutely. We also have Don Harper who says, I love
Oh,
watching and hearing Sujeeva's students play. There you go.
yes,
And
he's a great supporter. Yes.
indeed, indeed. And then we have Lakshan Pereira, whom I said, as I said earlier, is a Sri Lankan composer. And he says, I have a score of a piano sonata and would love and honor, be a great
Oh,
honor if I were to play it one day. So there you go.
yes,
So
would
you
love
already
to.
have.
Yeah, yes, would love
So,
to.
so, so with that, I think we can turn to our next piece by Claude Debussy, Pagodes, and from Estamps.
Yeah.
Yes, let's listen to that. Lovely. What an amazing, amazing performance, Sujeeva. And, it's a pity we couldn't hear the whole piece and there are two excerpts, but because we have such a short time together. But it evokes the Orient, with those pentatonic melodies and harmonies and tone colors, in this piece of music. But unfortunately, we are coming to the end of our program. And to conclude, I know you have chosen for us a collage of music from your young students. This time from a period in which they were actually a bit younger. What's in this collection? Tell us about it.
Yes, Lalanath, I wish that I could include so many more students, but we were short for time. So I thought the best concept would be to hear a few students from their young days and maybe an example of how they made their growth. So the video takes a little bit of a format like that, and you'll hear a lot of wide repertoire, and I'm just sad that it's only a few students, but you can hear more students and lovely repertoire when they were young as well on my website. So please visit it in the Young Artist Gallery. But for now, we have about 6 students when they were young to old. And you can see that these are little excerpts, but when they were young, they had a little bit more time and they learned a lot of repertoire. When they were older, not everybody had time. They were sort of about an hour's practice and all of that, but they had big plans for their music. And it was a kind of a thing of supporting them to the T and getting their projects done and, really kind of expand their mind. But if they had the gift of time, they are talented to have made a huge difference. But now, I just think they're doing splendidly and they were so sincere. I hope you'll enjoy their voice in music.
Indeed. And before we play their music, we have a few more comments. I want to read them out because they may be the last we can actually address. Taranga Gunatilaka says, I see Debussy's songs are are little jewels of profound poetry put into colors of tones. The piano part in the vocal repertoire I find to be more important than the parts of the voice in many ways. How do you find playing for his songs different from playing his pieces written by him only for piano? So that's a question to you. We also have Prashanthi Navaratnam, whom I think you know. I'm thoroughly enjoying this presentation from both of you. Thank you for sharing your amazing talent, Suji. How much I miss our music making. And then our colleague from Vietnam, Huynh Van Tran, who he says, thank you so much for this session. Thank you, Lalanath, and thank you, Sujeeva. And Lalanath de Silva, that's my daughter, as a matter of fact, says, lovely program, thank you, both. And Shamini Arulalandam, who was, before she married, Shamini Rasaratnam, was my first teacher, and I'm ever so grateful to her. She says, thank you, Sujeeva, for your lucid and sincere analysis of the music you featured today. So there you go. These are perhaps maybe a last set of comments. And so let's listen.
May I thank
Please, yes, you have to answer.
May I thank the singers, the Taranga and Prashi that I played for. We learned a lot from singers and their amazing fluidity and color of voice. And they are so precious. And anytime I work with a singer, it just hits our core and we just giggle and get profound about these colors and the poetry. So thank you for the experiences and we must have more.
Indeed. Yeah, well, thank you, Sujeeva. Let's listen to this last group of your students before we come back and say goodbye. So let's go ahead and hear that clip.
And we are wishing them well.
Amazing talent, amazing talent. So I mean, these young students are just so inspiring, so inspiring. Sujeeva, and it's all your teaching, you know.
Yeah, but at a certain point, as I said, they were not blessed with enough time, And this last guy, he recorded this after the same time he recorded the Bach Busoni Chaconne, which is like a 15-minute work of César Franck, prelude, chorale, and fugue. It was a huge run. Played his Mephisto waltz after a competition the previous day. He had his school ball, and after that he had to stay over till 3, and he came at about 7 or whatever 8:30 in the morning and played his Mephisto. I mean, and it's just crazy, but it's their perseverance.
Yeah, and also,
You have to support it.
indeed, so full of energy, so full of energy.
Yeah.
So we've come to the end of our program, Sujeeva. Do you have any last words for our audience? I mean, who've been, I think, very supportive. Thank you to all of our audience. Yes.
Thank you. Anybody who spends time with music is just, it's a gift for us. And I think it's a gift to the world because we lend our community, we lend our ears to subtlety, to conversation, and to each other, whoever who's playing and whoever it's a magical bond. And, I wish you more and more music, whether it's playing, listening, or collaborating or supporting. And music and humanity together, I wish you a lot in your lives. And we should not wait till the most peaceful times. This is when we really need it. And we hope that new composers come up with the times, for new compositions, so that we keep the ball rolling in every way. And I want to wish the kids just every bit of a wonderful future with their music. And I'm so glad of the joy that they brought the audience. And I couldn't do that without Prasanna. He recorded all of these kids. And so we have a little cheer with my heart for Prasanna. And thank you, Lalanath, for making it happen.
No, indeed. We have Lakshan Pereira, Amaranath Ranatunga, and Taranga Gunasar saying with some thank you notes at the end here. But colleagues and friends and members of our audience, Sujeeva and Prasanna, we've come to the end of this noteworthy session. Thank you ever so much, Sujeeva, for coming on this program. I have no doubt that our audience tonight enjoyed your performance and insights, and indeed your students as well. This video will be put up on YouTube, on the YouTube channel, and also on Facebook, of course. So if you would like to let your friends and relatives know about it, it will be there for anyone to watch afterwards. It might take maybe a day or two for us to get the video up, because we will do some editing to ensure that you get the best quality sound. A huge thank you to Prasanna, of course, Prasanna Amarasinghe, your husband, who produced Sujeeva's videos and collaborated with me to make the technical side happen. We'd had many back and forth conversations on email and text and so on before we got to today. But before we go, a reminder that our next noteworthy session will be on Saturday, the 28th of May. It's not next month, not in April, but in May, 28th of May at the same time. And we have a brilliant, absolutely brilliant Sri Lankan Canadian composer, Dinuk Vijayaratne, who will be our guest to present his award-winning and mind-blowing compositions. I tell you, don't miss that program, because he's by now well-known across Canada as one of the leading composers, and he is of Sri Lankan origin. And don't forget the concert by the Gustav Mahler Society Orchestra with Maestro Ananda Dabare as soloists in Tchaikovsky's Violin Concerto, which is on Saturday the 23rd of April at 7 p.m. at the Lionel Wendt Theatre. So with that, goodbye, Sujeeva and Prasanna. Until we meet again, stay safe and let music light up your world.
Thank you, Lalanath.
Bye.